Sam Lee from Trivium. Welcome back to the
What is
PPC Den
that?
podcast.
This is our special crippled edition.
Yes, we were talking before on the show that you had crutches in the background. I was like, "Did you break something recently?" And you broke it skateboarding.
Yep,
Were you do
shattered
were you,
my kneecap skating.
were you doing something gnarly?
Not even at all. Gnarly isn't stupid. Yes, I was going from a restaurant to go get the car in Minneapolis. It had rained and sleeted, and I
Oh
decided
my
it was a
god.
good idea to ride through a dark, wet alley on a skateboard.
Hmm.
Made it pretty quickly. Being very stubborn, got up and tried to limp it off. Then I look down at my knee and I see a bone poking on
Yep.
top of it. I'm like,
Nice.
okay. Yeah, so
Nice.
I've been here for about a month now. Surgery successful, but I'm limping around and you're one-handed.
That's right. If anyone's watched this show, like previous week's episodes, I had my hand in a cast because yes, I was rollerblading very fast, going downhill.
What are we thinking?
What are we doing? What are we doing? And I also had the bone. It didn't
So,
break through the skin, but it was definitely like poking.
yeah,
And
mine was the same. Yeah, it
yes,
didn't break, but I saw a little TP. I'm like, yeah, that's not usually there.
that's right. So yes, we've got some plates and some screws. We were commiserating, and we're back in action though. Let's
Yeah,
shift gears to something a little bit more
fun.
energizing for people. They don't want to hear about our broken bones, maybe, or maybe they do. So shout out if you also have a broken bone. Write in the comment what your last broken bone was. But seriously, Amazon DSP. Are you calling it a DSP yet, or are you still calling it DSP?
I will never call it a DSP. I only have so much room in my brain for acronyms, and Amazon tries to put five more in my head every day. I'm good with just Amazon DSP. Call it
it's
by
already an acronym.
it is.
It's
I know.
already DSP. Why add more letters to an acronym?
Yeah, Amazon. I call it by its surname out of respect. It's still Amazon DSP to me.
Right. I mean, at this point, you might as well. Yeah. So adding acronyms to things. Come on.
Yeah, way too much.
DSP. Would you say DSP is getting hotter over time or cooler over time?
I'd say hotter. I think I'm not
Agreed.
having as many conversations where I'm starting from exactly zero in
Right.
terms of teaching people what it is and how it operates. It's getting hotter, meaning more people are aware of it, more people are using it. We still run into a lot of the same perception issues, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I've heard it doesn't work.
It's got a bad rap.
Yeah, it's like some people have, and it's one of those things where it's like it's a tool, right? It's not something that's always going to work or not going to work, and it's all depending on how you use it. So definitely in some cases some ground to cover where here's what I heard or here's what we experienced and it didn't work, and then you dive in and there's usually a pretty good reason based on how it was run, why that happened. But either way, it's definitely something that is getting integrated more and more, and the knowledge is increasing. So that makes me happy.
You know, I'm sure Amazon had reasons to basically lock DSP away from most people. Meaning,
Yeah.
if you're an Amazon seller and you're spending 10 grand a month on your Amazon PPC ads, the leap from going from there for sponsored products, sponsored brands into a DSP world historically was a huge leap. It's like, oh, if I wanted to go do DSP, I need to like commit to this much money up front,
Right.
go. And I feel like that I'm sure they had their reasons. And I mean, it's not like DSP hasn't grown. DSP clearly has grown over the years and becomes a more powerful, robust tool. Like, true. But at the same time, in the PPC world, I feel like it's got a bad rap. One of the reasons is because it's like locked away.
Right.
And I feel like if a lot of advertisers, and I'm sure the reason is if you had a lot of advertisers just like kicking the tires, doing $1,000 test budget, they might misfire and then like have a negative experience. So I'm sure there was a reason why they did that. But my perception is that it is becoming more self-service, that like eventually it is going to become a little bit more accessible to more and more
Yeah.
traditional PPCers.
Yeah. So I think for one, what you're saying about why it was slash is still mostly gated away is correct. It's not that intuitive. They've
Mm.
taken steps to make it easier, meaning you can create auto campaigns with Performance Plus to roll out. And when they first launched, I didn't like them, but they've grown a lot. I'm a big fan now. Those are easy to build. There's still certain things, like little things, like if you don't add conversion tracking into an order, then you're screwed. Or like viewability rates and the inventory that you're serving on. Like the amount of times I've audited an account that's even run by a professional and they didn't actually realize what was going on, it happens a lot. So it's in part that. And it's also like, I'm still a big advocate of launching when to launch DSP, like when you're ready. It's not necessarily a very specific point, but there is a growth point you need to hit before that makes sense. I mean, if you're spending $5,000 a month on PPC, you see the bright, shiny DSP lever right there, and you want to press it, it's not time for you. And it might be something to do with that. And that has fueled the perception to be, I can't run DSP until I'm willing to put 50 grand behind it, which that's not true. It's just that you need to check the box with spend, sales, traffic, reviews before you launch it at all. But then once you launch it, there's no reason not to like jump into the shallow end first before. So I see the benefit in gatekeeping it a bit because it's very easy to misuse. I think that I haven't seen a ton of access, like brands that just inherently have access to it. However, with the changes that they've made to make it a little bit more user friendly, even just slight UI things that I've noticed that used to be something you had to go look for, they now broadcast it so you don't make a mistake. It definitely is looking to be, it's looking like it's heading in that direction. And especially with like AMC getting integrated into the PPC platform. And it just looks like that's going to be a logical next step soonish. But who knows when?
You know, I was talking to a client the other day and they only spend like 20 grand a month on their Amazon PPC. And then they had a 5 grand budget on DSP. And I thought they went in, they were really satisfied with it. So to me, that's like an evolution of DSP in the PPCers world. Exactly what I was saying. Like they asked to get a DSP seat and they asked again and again, and eventually they got one. And I feel like years ago they would have never got one, but they were able to just waltz into DSP and run a nice little, like tiny compared to in the grand scheme of things. And they were pretty happy with it. And I was reviewing it with them, and it was like pretty cool.
I like to use those numbers. Sorry, but that's my exact benchmark. Like when brands come to me, I look for at least 20K in spend. And then my recommendation for starting budget is no more than 5K. So like that sounds like they're on the lower end, a good chance to test it. And it's interesting to hear they were persistent and asked and got access. That's interesting to hear. I haven't seen that much at that level, but good for them.
Yeah. So really what I wanted to prompt you with this episode is really just like, what are you doing in DSP today to help people grow on DSP? So I asked you that question. A couple of things started coming up for you. So let's dig into it. What are you doing like in the course of this month as we're recording it? Like, what do you think some common themes will be that you will do for your clients to help them grow on DSP?
The two things that have been top of mind for me lately that I've got a lot of reps in with are added value, which we can talk about because it's a whole benefit side of Amazon that not that many people are even aware of, and video in general. I've been seeing a lot more brands experimenting with different types of video, sometimes with a super low budget as a test. And DSP has rolled out some new bells and whistles on the video side that the results and what I've been seeing with it are significantly better than they ever were before. I used to very sparingly recommend to brands to launch like any form of a video campaign. Now I'm recommending it a lot just based on the changes that I've seen.
Why were you hesitant in the past to launch a video campaign, and what's changed?
A couple reasons. I mean, the CPMs, generally speaking, were always higher. The quality of the video is just very important. It's so easy to launch a standard DSP campaign with responsive e-commerce ads, show them on Amazon, have them look great. In the video world, it's just you're only as good as your content. You can have everything else going for you, but if you have some sloppy AI video and you're putting it out there, it's often going to be a dud. Also, just because what I was viewing as a requirement in order to actually see the results of video was a higher investment, then now just with the results I've been seeing, especially from online video campaigns, the impact can be felt with a very small budget. Just purely the results, what they used to say and what they say now, tell me that in order to see an uptick, we don't need to invest as much as we used to.
Is it because you have better reporting available today? Like, are you able to run like an AMC report on your video campaigns and like have more informed decisions?
That definitely helps, but that's actually not why. And honestly, I don't have a really good reason behind why this happened, but it's just what I've been seeing, and it's been very, very consistent. With running online video campaigns, so streaming TV obviously being the big ones, Prime Video, on your
Right.
TV, Netflix, all this stuff. Online video just being miscellaneous video real estate on the internet. So it's like more akin to a YouTube ad, just not on YouTube, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what I've seen recently is click-through rates and cost per click have just really, really improved. For one, they rolled out the Performance Plus campaigns or line items for online video. I'm a big fan of what they call consolidated consideration campaigns, is what they call it, or unified consideration. And when running those, we've been seeing single-digit cent clicks in many, many places, where previously, regardless of the type of targeting, for one reason or another, it was always high CPMs, very high cost per click. So to see an uptick, I really would only use them for a general awareness raising. Now, with, I don't know if it's something with the placements or whatever it is, what I tend to see is immediate clicks for very cheap, and brands can see it as far as seeing a spike in their overall product detail page traffic almost immediately. And I wish I knew more than that.
When would you introduce DSP online video ads to a brand?
So usually what happens is they're starting with PPC. Once they hit the point and spend around where we talked about, let's say 20K or more, a little different for every brand, we'll roll out DSP with a smaller budget, run that. When it's successful and we go from say 5K to 10K in spend, when we see the signals that are telling us it's time to ramp things up, I'll usually recommend layering in video around month 3, provided everything else looks good. So for example, we start with 5K, we climb to 10. When they're asking, okay, what can we do to increase past here? Should we go to 15? That's usually when I'll recommend, let's go to 15, but let's put 2 or 3 of that behind online video and see how it does.
Are there any niches that would not make sense to do? So like, that one litmus test of like, okay, you're spending around 20 grand on your normal Amazon PPC. Let's throw 5 grand at DSP. I got a couple questions there, like SKU count, specificity of the product. Is it a novel product that's unique, or is it like a commodity type product? What are some factors that you look for that would make that 5 grand an initial DSP spend like a surefire bet? Like you feel really good about it, as opposed to one you're like, I don't know if it's going to work.
So one baseline thing is review count. Anything under 100 reviews is a no-go. Anything forced, like honestly, 4.5 is ideal. 4 is doable, but not as ideal. Less than 4, like 3.5 stars, not touching it. But as far as categories go and like what I look for, it's different categories and different price points have a different like starting strategy as far as DSP goes. So for example, if you're a brand that has several products that might more or less fit the same type of person, one of the first things that I like to roll out on the DSP side is cross-selling. That's a very early, easy win. Like let's say we have 10 products, we're in the supplement space, but protein's driving 90% of our sales. Create a purchase audience for protein. Let's get them to buy creatine. Let's get them to buy our amino acids. Easy win. Another one, obviously retargeting is just the most basic one everybody thinks about. For me though, that is largely just dependent on price point. I'm not a big fan of retargeting for a $10 product. Just kind of a waste. You're going to cannibalize some organic, and that's not a long-term decision cycle type of product. So price point for retargeting, anything especially $50 and up, retargeting is a huge lift. Cross-selling is great. And then outside of that, it's not category specific, but it's competitive advantage. Meaning because you have 100 reviews in the protein space or in like the fitness apparel space, doesn't mean you're ready to do much competitor conquesting unless you have a very, very clear edge somewhere over the other brands around you. If your product's unique, then by all means, let's get creative with targeting. But I need to see something that tells me that your product is better than at least half of the other products that are going to be sitting directly around you before we go for it. But the other thing, I guess, counter to that is that the nice thing about DSP in those areas is that unlike like a sponsored product or sponsored brand ad, you're not always stacked up directly next to your competitors. So if you're in a space that's hyper competitive and someone's browsing it, sometimes it is the most beneficial to hit that person when they're looking at something else, because you have an attractive product. It just doesn't look as attractive when there are 30 next to it with more reviews. So that's why building out a custom, hyper customized strategy for any brand that's launching DSP is very important. Like there is absolutely no one size fits all DSP strategy. That's the worst way to run it.
I like that. I like the specificity that you gave there. 100 reviews or more, great reviews. Cross-selling is an easy win. Retargeting is an easy win, which is why it makes sense. Those first cross-selling and retargeting aren't going to be video ads. You would then cross that threshold first and then explore some video ads. Yes. So that makes a lot more sense, seeing how you see those things. That's cool. As you sort of approach this juncture point where somebody's like, hitting 20 grand in normal PPC spend, they have the 100 reviews, 4.5 stars better, all of that stuff, and they're crossing over into cross-selling and retargeting. Has your workflow changed over the last few years due to AMC reporting?
Yeah, it has. It's mostly just about conveying value, because AMC Audiences, which we can talk about a little bit later, I find that almost everything in that regard is easy to replicate in the DSP itself these days. But tying PPC and DSP data in together and understanding how they interact with each other, giving people path to purchase reports, things that are digestible for brands to understand, it's huge, because you can see, okay, we spent 5K on DSP, we got 20K in sales, awesome. But brands do want to understand what's going on, because DSP isn't as intuitive to understand, I would say, compared to like a PPC ad where look something up, see the sponsored, they get that immediately. So having the types of reporting that tie everything together has been huge. And it just gives us more confidence in launching it at a small scale for a brand who's never heard of it, because we know that outside of just telling them what the ROAS is, we can paint a clear picture for them.
So let's use an example here. So let's say you launch a DSP campaign and you're looking at it and it says 100 grand in sales. What does Amazon Marketing Cloud allow you to explain about the 100 grand in sales that's being reported inside DSP?
Yeah. So the clearest one, and this has actually been pulled into the DSP platform as well natively, which is awesome, is giving them a path to purchase report, including frequency, showing what types of ads people were typically exposed to and in what order. So the reason that's interesting for me is because you can see like, okay, we drove this many sales and we looked at the path to conversion report. 80% of those people were exposed to a PPC ad first, followed by DSP. And, maybe 4 or 5 times. And then somewhere else down the line, we have only DSP exposure and how many sales that drove. And that just gives me an idea of what is DSP really doing? How many of these sales do we feel are incremental? And if I see that too high of a percentage of people were exposed to PPC first, and the results look really good, that tells me we might want to restructure things to focus more on incrementality, versus if we see more that's DSP exposure first and then PPC, we might actually be underreporting because it's using a last touch system. So we might actually be taking credit for fewer sales than we're actually driving. So that's why it's important to me, is I'm big on trying to dive into how many of these sales are incremental, because there are a lot of ways to cannibalize organic sales with DSP without the proper negations and targeting strategies.
Is a good way to think about that, like when you have sales. So like, let's just focus on sales for the business. The business itself got 100 grand in sales. Some of those sales will be single traffic source only, like direct search, click on an organic thing, buy the thing, or direct search, click on a sponsored product, buy the thing, or, well, I guess that's that. Or they like saw it on another product page, and then they clicked on it, whether they click on an ad or a suggested product on somebody else's listing, then they click and buy it.
Yeah.
Or just straight up direct traffic, maybe their friend shared it with them.
Yeah.
So it's like you have that single step purchase, but then you have other buckets of purchase paths. Maybe you have a certain percentage of sales that have a sponsored product click and an organic click. And then you have another percentage that's like a DSP click and a sponsored ads click.
Yeah.
And then you have another bucket that's like sponsored ads. It's like sponsored product, sponsored
Product,
brand,
DSP, sponsored
right.
brand, DSP again, sponsored display. Yeah.
So you have all these buckets where you go from everything from like one step sales, multi-step sales, everything in between from 1 step to 10 steps. And of course, there's commonalities there that'd be the most popular stepwise path that people make, as well as a particular order that people would make. How would you respond to like a question where it's like, let's say you look at something where it's like a sponsored ad, the amount of sales that had sponsored ads and a DSP.
Yeah.
How do you think about that on a regular, on a growing basis? Because, to play devil's advocate, what if someone were to say, oh, they would have purchased anyway. Like if they didn't click on this in the PPC ad, the DSP would have got it done. Or if they didn't click on the DSP ad, the PPC would have got it done. Meaning like, it's almost like correlation versus causation.
Yeah. And I mean, that's always a concern, right?
Right.
It's like when you're looking at the different types of ads and which funnel stage you're targeting, there's always the question of would this person have bought anyways?
Right.
When you're looking at branded search, for example, on PPC, or you're bidding on a non-branded term, but maybe your organic result number 2. So would they have just clicked the organic one had I not been running that PPC ad? And it's the same thing with DSP, retargeting, like lapsed purchase.
Right. Maybe they would have bought anyway. Yeah.
Very possible. It's very possible. And the truth of it is there's no way to know for certain, especially because when you're dealing with a couple hundred to 1,000 purchases, how many of them would have bought anyways? Who knows? So the best way to do it is when I roll things out initially, I start relatively basic, meaning we'll do like if we just talk about retargeting for, simplification.
Yeah.
Like 14-day view or something, no purchase in the past 45. Start with something like that. If the results look great, but for one reason or another, we're not feeling like we're seeing the impact holistically, like we're seeing an 8, but our sales didn't go up. What's going on? That is very important information for me to have because sometimes I run bottom funnel campaigns and brands see great results. Other times it'll look good, but they tell me that they're not seeing new sales.
Yeah.
So what that means is a couple things to look at and changes you have to make as a result of that. Like when we're talking about different types of ad exposures, an important one to look at when saying which of these can we pluck because it's just wasting money. What is your conversion rate based on the number of ad exposures?
Yeah.
Like if someone's seen, it's just a pretty much undeniable that when someone has seen more types of your ads, the conversion rate is higher, whether that's correlation or causation. I don't know. Right. Feel like it's causation. But that part's undeniable. And then if we're looking at just incrementality for DSP, what I usually do in that instance is, okay, we're not seeing an increase in the top line. Got it. For one, let's focus more on new to brand, generally speaking. Let's go after mid-funnel, go after competitors. Let's trim down what we're doing for people that are already familiar with us. And then let's get more extensive on the negations. Like if I'm running a retargeting campaign, then the concern is they would have come back and bought in a day anyways. Let's also negate 7-day views. So now we're only hitting people between the window of 7 days and 14 days or something when they were unlikely to have come back anyways. Results will likely go down a bit, but we can have a lot more certainty that the sales we're driving are because of the ads.
You brought up a great point there, which is you look at a DSP result, you're running your numbers, you see the path to purchase, you see the frequency, you see all these multi-touch points that people have. And then you still need to zoom out and look at the bottom line. Like, did the bottom line actually go up or not, like before and after? I feel like a lot of times people will overcomplicate reporting and like skip over sort of like almost more obvious reporting, which is just like column A is like total sales of the business by week. Column B is like DSP spend. Column C is like, all like really basic metrics. I feel like sometimes get missed.
They're definitely important to look at.
Yeah. And I also feel like the philosophy is like everything helps. It's just a matter of like how much everything costs.
Right.
Because all things being equal, it's like, does TikTok help your Amazon sales? It's like all things being equal, I'd probably say yes. Like you're going to
Yeah.
get some exposure over there that will help you on Amazon in some way. In some ways, it's a little bit incalculable. And in
Yeah.
other ways, it's like, the multi-touch experience is like a known thing in marketing. It's like people need so many interactions with you before they purchase. So like you have these known things, like some of the easiest clients I've ever worked with had a really strong social presence. And I never touched their social presence, but it's like they had really strong social presence. They had influencers and
Yeah.
great content on their socials, which just made life on their Amazon account really easy.
Yeah.
Why? It's like, did it cause it? Or was it just, is it correlated? And it's like the clients that I've worked with over the years that have always felt the easiest, they had all these factors that I wasn't able to quantify in my PPC reporting. It's like, well, they had great product market fit and like they had really good assets and like they had like a YouTube channel and they had active socials and they had like great
Yeah.
email marketing and like they had all these other things that I wasn't able to tap into, but like I just knew it made life a little bit easier.
100% agree with that.
And then of course the question is like, it's often a business level decision, which like, what is their thought and policy around incrementality? Like how strict or stringent are they when looking at these kinds of reports, like these bucketed reports like DSP and PPC sales versus just PPC sales versus just DSP sales? A lot of that is like a company level feel conversation where it's like, how does the company want to consider these things? It's hard to truly quantify. But I guess like the closing question on this topic is like, does any report in Amazon Marketing Cloud make that story easier outside of, is there anything that we haven't mentioned that makes that story easier to understand? Because I personally have trouble with it. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people have
I
trouble
mean,
with that.
honestly, AMC is a very helpful tool. But when we're talking about all of the potential things that can lead somebody to come and ultimately buy from us on Amazon, it's never going to be perfect, no matter what. Like,
Totally.
I agree that the brands that I work with that do awesome on TikTok and Instagram makes Amazon so much easier. Branded searches go up when they're investing more in those platforms, and that's a very clear indicator. But I'm always an advocate of sometimes it's good to zoom way in, but more often than not, you want to make sure you're zooming out. Zoom out if things are working and you're investing in these couple channels and you're seeing growth, continue to invest. In the event that we see a downturn or anything's happening where it warrants really in-depth research, I think it's good to look at things really in depth on like a monthly basis, maybe every other month,
Yeah.
and then look at the big picture every week, just so you don't lose your mind. And the AMC reporting, I think the path to conversion or path to purchase is good. There are a lot of good reports in there, but for me, it's just about what is the client ultimately looking to see out of this? What's important to them? And then between AMC and I also like to be in tune with what they're doing off Amazon so we can really get a clear holistic picture. But one thing that happens a lot is like, okay, this seems like it's doing really well, but we're also investing in TikTok. We're also putting more behind Google ads, whatever it is. So we're not sure if DSP is working. Let's try turning it off for a month and see what that does to sales. And the problem is that that's never going to be perfect. Maybe you were running a deal last month and you're not this month.
Yeah.
So that shows the drop off you're going to attribute to DSP or vice versa.
Yeah.
Maybe you're pulling budget from DSP and putting it into TikTok. And if your results stay flat, then you're going to think it didn't work. So it's very hard to operate in a vacuum.
Big time.
So I try to encourage brands to, like, if things are working and the sales are increasing, let's dive in to figure out how to make it better. But things like turning something off to see what happens can it can hurt your business, and it usually does.
Yeah. The thing I always like to say is like, nobody touch anything. Like your conversion rate's going to be different today than it is tomorrow. Like, like it's tricky. So cool. I love that we discussed the efficacy of DSP and like different ways to analyze the data, as well as like when to get started.
Yep.
You also wanted to mention this program. So I found this really fascinating. I actually didn't know about this, which is just describe this program that you are sharing here.
So basically, Amazon offers what's called added value to brands for various reasons. All added value is free ad spend. It's ad spend. I run it through the DSP. I've only ever seen it available through the DSP. That you run it like any other DSP campaign and you don't receive an invoice at the end of the month. So there are several ways. It's really interesting because I think you Googled it earlier when we were talking
Couldn't
about
find it.
And there's just nothing. They don't have an article that I've seen about it. Maybe they call it something else. I don't know. I've only gotten exposure to it through the brands that I work with and through their Amazon reps. But there are a number of ways you can qualify. So if you've been advertising and worked with Amazon for a while and you have a rep, often at the beginning of the year, Amazon will give you what's called a DAA. I think that stands for Direct Advertising Agreement, which just says we spent $100K last year. We're going to spend $130K this year. Obviously, if you have a rep, it's higher than that, but you get what I'm saying. It's a percentage they're agreeing to. And by signing things like a DAA, by testing new platforms such as DSP or new initiatives within platforms such as streaming TV, Amazon will often give you free money. And sometimes they'll come to you with it. Like if you have a DAA available, you will know that at the beginning of the year because your rep will be pushing you to sign it. However, other ones like testing Amazon DSP, there's often added value available for that. But the Amazon rep hasn't brought it up to them. Maybe they don't even know that this brand qualifies. So in a number of instances, I've taken a brand who is working with us for PPC or is considering launching DSP, but they've never done it before. And before I even get too deep in the weeds with them, I have them connect me with their Amazon rep and I ask them if there's added value DSP available to them, because we now have a way to run it.
Yeah.
And what'll often happen is with these added value purchases, it's either a percentage. So sometimes it's like if you spent $100K in Q1, we'll have an added value match up to 50% of free ad spend you can use in Q2. So it's often a percentage of spend. It's first time trying things. They give you something called a DSP learning fund. I've gotten those out of nowhere for brands that are like 20 or 30K of like just messing
experimental
around. Yeah. So there's a lot available. I mean, it's just an interesting program. And it's funny that if you reach out to your rep and ask about it, you'd be surprised. A lot of brands have it available to them and both them and their rep aren't aware until they check.
That's fascinating.
It's interesting.
It reminds me of, I mean, these numbers that you're describing are much bigger, but I mean, like every ad platform, like Meta, Google, Amazon, they all have like spend $200 for 30 days and get $200 in ad credits and like paltry numbers, right? $200. It's like, what am I going to do with that?
Right.
But that's fascinating that it exists at that scale. And I mean, it makes sense. Like if they're able to offer it to lots of people at like the spend 1,000, get 1,000 on the Amazon ads level, like also makes sense. It's like spend $100,000, we'll give you 25%.
And it's just classic sales and marketing, right?
Totally.
It's like go to the store, it's buy one, get one free. You might not have bought one otherwise. It's exactly what they're doing. And they own the other things.
Right. It doesn't cost them much money.
Right. There are rules around how you can run it that are kind of interesting. So, for example, it can only run on Amazon. You can't do any off Amazon placements with this.
Right.
Also, 90 to 95% of the time, it has to be completely untargeted. So you can't add audiences. You
couldn't do it for retargeting.
Nope. I've seen exceptions. And it's funny because every time I've talked about added value with a rep, they send me their rules. And they're mostly the same, but there are just weird differences every time. Like one rep said, yeah, you can target whatever you want. Okay. Another rep said, you can target, however, you can't use any custom audiences. You have to use the ones available on the platform.
Got it.
Then 90% of the time, it's completely untargeted. So is it going to be the biggest ROAS driver for you? No, not necessarily. But it ultimately is very cheap impressions. We see a lot of clicks from it. And they'll often get like a 1 ROAS, but then it's building retargeting pools, it's building awareness. I've seen brands get a 60K added value grant, just not a percentage match, just to put towards DSP. I don't even know why they qualified, but until you have that conversation, you'll never know.
That's cool. So yeah, that's definitely going to be in my like mental SOP now when I am navigating situations just like this. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So I think we got a good episode right here. Number one, like I love like the approach into DSP, because I do think it is becoming more integrated into normal Amazon PPC conversation. So it's like better understanding like when to incorporate it, and knowing that you can,
One of the biggest.
incorporate it for like $5,000 these days, and you don't need to commit to like 50 grand out of the gate. That's helpful to know. The cross selling as an easy win, the retargeting as an easy win to spend with that first 5K. The 100 review benchmark, the 4.5 stars or better benchmark, that's pretty valuable too. I think it's always a good conversation to have in your mind before you do anything like that. How are you going to interpret the data? Like, what is your company's internal SOP for multi-click attribution or path to purchase? Like, how does your company want to interpret those? Like, do you have a good idea, or are you just going to like wait to be surprised? So that was really helpful. And then free money from Amazon to test DSP.
Yeah.
Always ask. You can't get what you don't ask for.
Right. Yeah. And, they'll come to you often if you have a good rep and they're aware. Sometimes they don't even know. Like Amazon is so compartmentalized and ultimately pretty disjointed. So like the right hand never fully knows what the left hand is doing with Amazon. So it's important to give, what's the word? Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
One last thing that I forgot to mention that I've been seeing a lot of that I just think is worth touching on briefly is I've been seeing a lot more brands using Amazon DSP to drive to their D2C site.
Yeah.
That one, it's always been a thing, but the attribution with that's a mess. It's basically when I do that, it can be super effective. It's just our KPI is clicks. Like that's all we're really tracking. We can add some UTMs and see what purchases come through, but what we're really trying to do is drive clicks. And with that, paired with what I was saying about online video and the cheapness of the clicks recently, we're able to send thousands and thousands of people to their website for really cheap. So that's been a big. I used to talk brands out of that when they asked me to do it, but nowadays, just with the click-through rates and costs going down, I think it's a great idea as long as you go into it understanding that you're not really going to be able to track the sales. But I love currently I love the online video using Amazon Audiences to push to D2C play. I think it's really interesting.
And what you just described, the online video driving to their D2C site, I'm just thinking in terms of like scaffolding, because the first $5,000 is retargeting, cross-selling. And then you mentioned like once you get to like 5-10 grand there, then you would introduce online video to their Amazon store. Is that like a third chapter where it's like, okay, now that we did that, let's do online video?
What usually happens is we're scaling DSP by itself. Next, we test online video. We see all the clicks coming through and how cheap they are. I'll mention to them, by the way, we could send traffic to our website also if that's of interest. It really just depends on like how much of an appetite a brand has for more D2C traffic, because some brands have it totally down. Maybe Amazon's dragging a little bit behind, so they want to focus on Amazon. Other brands are like, we have a great use case for this is when brands have a couple products on Amazon and a broader range of products on their website. Right. With obviously that's better margins for them. We'll take Amazon purchasers, show them a video featuring the product that's not on Amazon, drive them to D2C. There's a lot of ways you can get kind of funky with it.
Right on. Well, Sam Lee of Trivium, thanks so much. We'll have a link to your website in the description here. Super appreciate it. My friend with open reduction and internal fixation surgery, where they chop us open and put a plate and screws in. We were comparing x-rays before the call, and we won't show them here because it's like, I feel like you need a trigger warning because it's like, here's some
badass.
It's pretty cool. I know. My friend asked me like, what are you going to tell people? And I think I'm going to tell people, instead of like I was rollerblading, I'm going to be like, I was doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and I don't tap out.
It's like I've just been telling people when they ask me, I'm like, oh, I'm not actually hurt. These are just sympathy crutches.
Well, I wish you a speedy recovery. Thank you so much for coming back on the PPC Den podcast. Everyone else, I'll see you next week here on the PPC Den podcast.
I've launched campaigns and picked keywords. I've got my bits set placements too. Not bad mistakes.